Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Tejal. On this channel, we're going to learn to crochet together as well as dive into many other crafts. Today, I'd like to launch my Intro to Crochet Amigurumi series. During each series, I will go over the supplies needed, any tips I've been able to gather, skills that'll be required in order to complete a project, as well as tutorials for those skills. And then I'll go over the projects that I plan to complete in each series. Let's get started. But first, what is amigurumi? If you've never heard the term before, amigurumi is the Japanese art of crocheting toys. Think plush animals, food, characters, plants, all those cute crochet stuffies that you've seen on Instagram or Pinterest. So let's go over the supplies that we'll need. The general supplies include yarn, of course, and a crochet hook. We'll need stitch markers. I suggest the locking styles so that they don't fall out of our projects. We'll need darning needles in order to sew our pieces together. Scissors, as long as they will provide a very clean cut to our yarn. We'll need stuffing for the projects. I suggest polyfill, but you can use other materials as well. And we'll need embroidery floss or safety eyes. Safety eyes are plastic eyes that can be used on our amigurumi, but they are not safe for children under 3. So if you do intend on giving this amigurumi to someone under 3 years old, then I would suggest using the embroidery floss for the facial details. So let's get started with general tips. These are tips that I wish I had known before beginning crocheting amigurumi. Tip number 1, do not start with chenille yarn. Chenille yarn and plushies are very popular right now. And so this is very tempting, but I still do suggest to begin with a different type of yarn. Chenille yarn makes it very difficult to see your stitches. The stitch visibility would be a lot clearer with an acrylic or a cotton yarn, which is what I would suggest instead. Tip number 2, kind of along the same lines, is don't use a dark colored yarn for your first couple of projects. This will also make your stitches very difficult to see. So colors like black, navy blue, purple, any of those darker colors, it'll be difficult to see your stitches. And so I would suggest lighter colors in order to be able to view your stitches easier. Tip number 3, for amigurumi, size down 2 millimeters from the crochet hook recommendation listed on the yarn label. I think this is because the yarn label generally recommends the crochet hook size for perhaps a garment or a blanket, and for amigurumi, the stitches need to be much tighter in order for the stuffing not to show through. And so because of this, we will need to size down 2 millimeters. Also keep in mind that this is a general recommendation that can be adjusted based on your own tension and any pain you feel in your hands. So just something to keep in mind. Tip number 4, use ami sticks or sewing pins. Ami sticks, I think, are knitting needles that have been repurposed to hold your plushies together while you sew them together. This helps so that we're not having to juggle the different pieces of the amigurumi as well as try to sew them together. This will help the pieces stay together, and that way we can have an idea of where each piece goes. Do we like where the placement of these pieces are? And then we're not having to juggle all the pieces in our hands while we also try to sew them together as well. Tip number 5, when sewing together your plushie pieces, so your chenille yarn projects, consider using an acrylic or cotton yarn. This can provide a sturdy, more seamless and clean look to your finished project. In this section, we'll go over the skills that we'll need in order to complete an amigurumi project. And with these skills, I'll go ahead and list out tutorials down below and give all the details because I'm also learning this as we go. So either I'll provide tutorials for links for tutorials that I've used myself and found helpful, or ones I intend to use because I'm still learning too. So of course, we'll need a general knowledge of crochet stitches. So this can include single crochet, double crochet, slip stitch, slip knots. And for this, I'll provide what I learned from, which is the woobles. So they do have a tutorial for right-handed or left-handed crocheters on YouTube, and I'll leave the links down below. Next, we'll talk about the magic ring. Magic ring is one of those skills that I think ends up stumping a lot of crocheters, new crocheters, and can turn people off from the craft, or at least from amigurumi. So the magic ring, I think, can be an easy skill to learn if you just do it repetitively. That's how I learned from the Woobles magic ring tutorial. Again, every time I needed to do it in a project, I would just pull up the tutorial, do it, and follow that tutorial. And after a while, I didn't need to go back to it. So I think that's just all it takes. Now, the Woobles aren't the only ones that have a great tutorial out there for a magic ring. I know Elise Rose Crochet has one, I think TL Yarn Crafts, and I will provide all of those links down below too. Some projects don't begin with a magic ring though. Some begin with crocheting in a chain. And so for this, I'll provide a link to a tutorial provided by Tiny Curl Crochet. Clean color changes can make a huge impact on your finished project, so I recommend some techniques suggested by the Naughty Boss. Some projects end up having a hexagon shape instead of a circular shape, and in order to prevent this from happening, you can stagger your increases. Knit Grit has a great technique for this, and it'll lead to a more circular, kind of seamless look to your project. Sewing your pieces together neatly can make a huge impact on your project. So Crochet Me Zaddy has a great tutorial where he goes over multiple different techniques on how to sew your pieces together. I think that he did a great job explaining how to crochet your pieces when they are in different formats. So for example, if you have an open piece that's being crocheted to a closed piece, or any kind of degree of that, his tutorial is really great. Facial details. This is where your amigurumi really comes to life. This is how we can give them personality, but it does take a lot of effort and I think practice as well. The details that I'm talking about are your embroidery for facial details, as well as using embroidery for enhancing your safety eyes, even using other materials such as felt for eyes perhaps, and shaping techniques. Some of my favorite tutorials for this come from Craftably Ever After, Teresa's Crochet Shop, and Oaken Marlowe. Yarn over versus yarn under. Yarn over is your standard crochet technique that is taught. However, for amigurumi, yarn under is very popular because it creates a more tight-knit stitch in a X formation, and it leads to tighter, more uniform stitches. Crochet has a great tutorial and video about this, when to use which stitch. So now for the fun part, the projects that we'll be completing during this series. I decided to go ahead and narrow down the project type by yarn. And so we'll be completing 2 projects in this series. One project will be a cotton/acrylic yarn project, and the other will be a chenille/blanket yarn project. Generally, I will try to choose patterns that are free patterns that are available to everyone. That won't always be the case, but I will try to find similar patterns for any of the paid patterns that I end up using. But for this series, the first pattern I will be going along with is Elise Rose Crochet's the 3 Not So Little Pigs. This is a free pattern on her blog. There is a video that has some tips as well, but all of the information is on her blog in her with the pattern. I think it can also be purchased in a PDF format as well if you'd like. And for this, I will be using acrylic yarn. I think the acrylic yarn can be used, or a cotton yarn, and she has some comparisons on her blog of different types of yarns that can be used for this project. For the chenille yarn project or blanket yarn project, I'm going to be going to use a Mama Made Minis Lovey project. Now, again, this is a paid version. However, I think there are many Lovey project tutorials and free patterns online. And so I will look for some that I can link in the description box below for you if you'd like to follow along. Okay, everyone. Now I think that's everything that you'll need in order to get started with your amigurumi project, at least in the beginner phase. We can go along together with this and share ideas, tips and tricks, and just see how it goes. In next week's video, I'll go ahead and take you along my process of making the Elise Rose Crochet's 3 Not So Little Pigs amigurumi project. I'll share my challenges, any tips that I come across, and I'll try to implement a lot of the skills that I went over today into that pattern or project and see if they work for me or not and what I'm able to share with you as well. If you're interested, I'd love for you to follow along, maybe subscribe, and we can do this together.